Hi, I'm Angie Hilton, and welcome to the Destination Happiness podcast, where we explore stories, tools, and insights that inspire calm, connection, and growth in our everyday lives. Today, I'm honoured to speak with Nicki Everett, author of the deeply moving book Uncomfortably Comfortable. Nicki's journey is one of incredible strength and resilience. As a former prison guard, she faced harrowing and life-changing experiences that led to her to live with PTSD. In this conversation, she opens up about those challenges and how she's found ways to not just survive, but thrive. Before we begin, I want to give a gentle trigger warning. Today's episode includes discussions about trauma and PTSD. If these topics feel overwhelming, please listen with care or consider coming back to it when you feel ready. If you're seeking inspiration, insight, or support on your own journey, this is an episode you won't want to miss. So thank you so much for joining us, Nicki. It's a real honor to have you here, sharing your story, which is such a personal one, and your vulnerability is going to help so many. So getting right into it straight away, Uncomfortably Comfortable is the title of your book. Can you explain where did that title come from?
Um, it came from when I was working in the prisons. You know, you'd be walking into units with hundreds of prisoners around, and you always had that uncomfortable feeling, particularly when you're working with sex offenders. And then that feeling sort of continued on once I developed PTSD. I've never been able to feel comfortable with it. I'm always anxious, and yeah, so the title "Uncomfortably Comfortable" seemed to fit.
Mm. So taking a step back, the prison system, when did you get started in that system and what drew you to it in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I first began in palliative care, and I've always worked in projects or different roles, and it just sort of jumped from there. So I started in palliative care, then went to mental health, and from mental health, I was working on a project that actually incorporated the prisoners with the patients in the psychiatric unit, making toys for children that needed that extra love. So yeah, it was a good jump. Hmm.
Gosh, so you've always had a heart for helping people, obviously, but it's like you're picking the pretty extreme stuff that a lot of people would probably want to avoid. Did you find that was the case?
I did, but it's sort of like those roles found me. I've always had a drive to help people create change. I think most people are good. Most people are good. It just a lot of people make poor decisions. Don't get me wrong, there is some bad people in the prisons, but most people have just had a crisis, made a poor decision, and then just ended up there. So they just need that little bit of extra help to get back on their path. And I find the value in that. I find the silver lining in that. Mm.
So how many years were you working in the prison, did you say?
Nearly 10. So
Wow.
yeah, I would overlap because I was working in the courts as well, and then mental health. So my role would be project managing. So the government would give me a certain amount of money, a whole heap of KPIs, a certain amount of time, and then some outcomes. So developing programs. So my last program was the setting up the prison pre-release program across the state. So I'd travel around to all the prisons in the state, setting up this important program.
So pretty major roles that you've got. How did you, in the lead up to what happened in the later years, how did you look after your mental health in that time? And had you ever had any issues before?
No, I didn't. I didn't prior to working in the prisons. I always was conscious of looking after myself, as in going for walks and having baths and looking after myself in that way. But I think in the later years in working the prisons, I got so caught up in meeting KPIs and working all these hours and making sure I was perfect. I was working in a men's world, so I had to double up what I was offering. I would go into meetings fully prepared because I would be up all night making sure I was. So I was not looking after my mental health at all. And when the first incident happened, there was 5 incidents over 2 years. When the first one happened, I would just, well, I have to toughen up. I'm in this men's world. I just have to suck it
Mm.
up and keep going. And I did that every time, but I did crumble. My
Mm.
mental health was suffering each time until the
So,
day I finally broke.
right. So you say 5 incidents. Are we talking about in the prison? What type of things would be happening?
Yeah, so the first one was the riots in the prisons. Um, and the second one was a mental health patient. So she was going to court, she was going to prison, and she trapped me in her home. She was having a mental health episode. The third one was my one of my best friends suicided, and she worked with me too. So we that was huge. And then the fourth one was another big fight in the prison, and the last one was the stabbing. I got caught up in a prisoner stabbing another prisoner with only other prisoners around, and it broke me. It was the day that broke me.
Oh my gosh, what do you remember happening from that moment?
It was really weird. It's like I was there, but I wasn't there. I'd just walking out into the yard, and another prisoner was walking towards me, a prisoner I knew, and he started acknowledging me as if to say hello. And all of a sudden, another prisoner jumped out from the side and yeah, just started stabbing him. And then very quickly, prisoners came from everywhere, and it was almost like this pack mentality of almost like you know monkeys jumping and the energy and
Oh
I
my
found
gosh.
myself um, I found myself watching it from somewhere else, and just
Out of
froze at the
body.
time. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I just froze. And yeah, I don't have a lot of memory after that. I have flashbacks of the sounds and the smells
Mm,
and
mm.
the environment and the energy. But a prisoner was calling my name and got me out, and then yeah, I went back to the unit, and then again, prisoners were coming out, so I was stuck again. So it was an ongoing trauma.
Oh
Mm.
my goodness. So, so it had been. Would you look back now and say after the five incidents, there was a slow build-up of I should be taking more care, I should be stepping back, whatever. Like we're hearing signals of I should be taking more care of myself, but kind of not listening enough. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I definitely knew I should have been taking care of myself. I should have been debriefing after each incident. I should have been taking some time off, but I didn't. I had the idea that if I busied myself,
Mm,
head down, bum up, if I made myself busy, I wouldn't think about it. And that did happen. But the
mm,
minute you slow down, it all comes up. In your
mm,
dreams, I have horrific nightmares. Um, so the way I was dealing with it wasn't a good way to deal with it. It was very temporary. Mm.
And would you say, is that turning to, drinking or like what sort of things were you doing to mask the PTSD?
At the time, I was working flat out. I just
Mm,
worked. I worked on weekends. I was working. I didn't. I'm not a big drinker. Although now I am living with PTSD, I will find that I have a drink to go out to be in,
mm,
in crowds and things. But it's still not something. I know other people pick up on that, but it's not something that has been my
mm,
coping mechanism. But yeah,
mm,
working, keeping busy, not thinking that, and I just
mm,
kept pushing one problem down on top of the other, and eventually it all
mm,
just came out.
mm.
Yeah.
So what we hear the word PTSD, but like what does it actually mean? Like we can have an idea of what we think it is, but how did you know that you had it?
I hadn't really heard much about it either. All I knew was PTSD was associated with combat soldiers coming back from war.
Mm,
So the essence of PTSD is the feeling of being trapped and not being able to get away during a life-threatening event. But what I've got is complex PTSD. So that comes from several events. A lot of people who've experienced childhood trauma have complex PTSD because it's gone over years of um, feeling trapped and not being able to get away. Mm.
mm,
So it's similar symptoms, but you have different triggers. Mm.
mm. And so did you feel quite debilitated for quite a long time? What was the treatment process?
Yeah, I didn't accept it. I didn't think. I just thought, no, I need to toughen up. I've
Mm,
seen violence before. This is
yeah.
not me. I'd worked very hard to get to the position I was in for my career. And so I think that not accepting it made it even worse.
Mm,
And I would berate myself. I'm like, come on, you need to be stronger. And that
mm,
actually was not a that wasn't a good way to take care of myself.
Mm.
Um, but I felt ripped off. Really, I'd worked so hard. I was able to communicate with prisoners. I was able to communicate, with my superiors, and all of a sudden, I wasn't able to speak. I couldn't string
Mm.
a sentence together.
Really?
Um, I
So
would,
was that like an ongoing thing that you felt like you didn't have a voice from
yeah,
that moment?
yeah. This went
Mm.
on for years. My body would shake. It's called trauma talk, where you talk either in full stops or the words all just tumble out on top of each other.
Mm.
And I've got this nervous energy about me now, that I'm really conscious of. That
Mm.
I don't want to make other people feel nervous because of my nervous energy, but it's just always traveling around my body. Yeah.
Mm. And does that stay with you no matter, say, if you were to meditate every day, does that see, is it complex PTSD?
Mm.
Does that stay with you at some level, or can it be worked through to minimize those symptoms you're talking about?
Yeah, it can be minimized. Again, looking after yourself, and doing positive things. What often happens is when we've got complex PTSD, we beat up on ourselves. We stay
Mm.
home. When we do go out, we think that something's going to happen, and then so we avoid places. It's just this cycle
Mm.
of yeah, of just not going anywhere, and it doesn't help at all. It's called the negative feedback loop, where it keeps going round and round and round
Mm.
negatively, and you need to actually try and get some positive stuff in there. Mm.
Mm. So, what have been some of the best strategies that have helped you to sort of get back on track?
Well, I tried absolutely everything. I was on a lot of medication at the start, and a lot of talk therapy. I tried all, and I didn't like being on a medication. It just numbed me, and it made me, it spaced me out even more than what I was.
Mm.
Um, and then I went on, like, I did float therapy and new calm and all these alternative therapies. But what ended up being my savior, I think, or something that, really pushed me into that healing space was, my psychologist used to encourage me to journal. And it
Mm.
wasn't something that appealed to me. I didn't really like the idea of writing.
Mm.
I can't I'm a terrible speller. So I resisted it for years until one particular night I had a horrific nightmare, and I just got up and I was so desperate I just started writing.
Mm.
And from
Mm.
that point, I wrote for 2 years. It just kept coming out and coming out and coming out. And
Really?
at that point, my psychologist said, "I think that you've written a book." So,
Wow. It was never an intention, right? It just started
no,
pouring out.
yeah.
And when you say you're writing, was it all like the images you were seeing? Was it all the feelings? Were you writing without thinking, just sort of purging?
Yes, I was definitely not thinking.
Mm.
Sometimes it was just scribble. Sometimes it was just words. Chapter 2, I can't remember writing at all. That was about the
Really?
stabbing. So it's like your subconscious is just getting. It's like we've got a splinter, this trauma splinter deep inside of us that we've pushed
Mm.
down, and the writing or the journaling is. It's like it's working its way up, and it takes it out of your head. Um, the easiest way for me to describe it is sometimes, when you have something on your mind and it's going round and round in circles at night time,
Mm.
while getting up writing about it, I was able to leave it on the page and go back and
Mm.
sleep. It just gave me some peace. It was amazing.
Mm.
Mm.
Were there any sections of the book that were particularly challenging or cathartic to write about?
I think writing about the healing was good. It's like it put it all into perspective. One of the things I did too was I had to research. I had to figure out what was happening. Like, why is this happening in my
Mm.
brain?
Mm.
So I ended up reading a lot of books on trauma, and I ended up writing like a little, sort of like a little ebook, and I wrote it as if like I was talking to the prisoners in group work,
Mm.
and I used little names and characters of what's happening during a traumatic event in our brain, and it helped me make sense of what was happening to me.
Mm.
And again, that was another reason why I stopped beating up on myself, because I realized it's not about me being weak.
Mm.
So
That's it. So, what do you hope that readers take away from the book, particularly, those who might have been struggling with PTSD themselves?
yeah, I think that sometimes it's hard to just you know the mental illness is a really difficult thing to cure. So that whole beating yourself up and thinking that you're weak.
Mm,
If you
mm,
can get through that, I discovered the kintsugi, that Japanese metaphor. It's they use broken pottery and they repair it with
mm.
gold. And the
That's
idea,
right.
yeah, the idea
Mm,
is that you embrace your flaws
mm,
and it becomes your biggest strengths. And
mm,
that's when I decided, yeah, I'm going to embrace my flaws. I'm going to embrace this. This is something that, is part of me now. It's made me more stronger, resilient, and more interesting than I was before. So I'm not
mm,
less of a person.
mm. I
Um,
love that.
so yeah, the thing I would love for people to learn is that, you may have been through trauma that doesn't minimize who you are.
Mm,
You need to own your strengths and
mm.
um
Mm.
yeah.
And if anything, when you've been through something so big like that and you come out the other side at some level, the wisdom that you've gained that you can share with others as you're doing
Mm.
is invaluable. And though you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy to go through it, you come out and think, I really can help others who are in that pickle. Do you feel
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, it was like a breath of
Mm,
fresh air. I didn't
mm,
I thought I was highly successful businesswoman. When I
mm,
came out the other side, I realized that I was numb. I was numb to
mm,
the feelings. I was numb to the world. My whole focus was on working.
mm,
So now I can just see the gifts of trauma, gifts in connecting with people, the gifts
mm,
of innocence of animals and nature, and
mm,
just there's a lot of gifts out there, and
mm,
and I can feel again. Some of it's
mm.
bad, but I can feel again.
It's
Mm.
such a good point. You're talking about being numb, and sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it, where we just push it down, push it down. I don't need, I'm strong. I don't need to feel that. But
Yeah,
then when you block those big feelings, you're blocking the joy that comes from the opposite side of it. And I've seen myself do it over time as well. And it's like when I finally let myself feel or tears come up these days, I'm like, yes,
yeah,
that's great. I let it out as much as I can because I think I was holding something in that I didn't even realize, and
yeah.
I'm like, need to let it all loose.
Yep.
Do you feel
It's
like
like,
that too?
oh, 100%. It's like you've
Yeah.
been holding your breath for years and all of a
Yes.
sudden it just
Yes.
lets it come out. And
Yep.
just, it's to be human is to
Mm.
experience emotions.
Mm. That's
So
it.
we need to embrace that. So,
Completely. I'm
mm,
right on the same page. So, what about the actual, now as you reflect back, is there any part of you that could step back into the prison system, or is that a chapter that's completely closed?
yeah, for me, it's completely closed. Even now, if I'm out and about, and someone's yelling, or I'll get triggered quite a bit. So I think for me to go back in the prison system, I would do more harm than good.
Mm,
Um, I used to have the ability to speak calmly to prisoners, to talk them down if they were upset,
mm,
and I don't think I would have that anymore.
mm,
Um, but and that was a part of the me being unwell, is that I felt I'd lost my purpose in life.
mm,
I'd worked so hard to get to
mm,
this point, and then what's my purpose now? So
mm, mm,
after writing this book, I've discovered my purpose again.
incredible. Just reflecting back on your time in the prison system, and there would be many women, I think, that would just never even dream of stepping foot inside a prison.
Mm.
What was that like, as in for a woman?
Yeah.
How did you even wrap your head around doing it in the first place?
Yeah, at the start, I was nervous, but um, I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted
Mm,
to I had a fear of violence. I wanted to really get in there and challenge myself. I always had the perspective that if I can get in there and help a prisoner, even just a little
mm,
drop in the ocean, I may be helping a victim. Um,
mm,
rather than being on the other end and working with victims, I might be able to help that prevent anything from happening.
mm,
But it was a scary place to work at times, but you sort of got used to it. I'd been there nearly 10 years, and you got to know the prisoners. They were
mm,
coming in and out and different. different incarcerations and different prisons
Mm.
I'd see them in, and yeah, it was an
And
interesting place.
yeah, because I guess you think, oh, they're prisoners, they're bad. But am I right in thinking that a lot of them have just made one bad decision and they're
Yes.
in there and they're actually good people at the core, but would that be right?
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, there is some bad people. There is some really bad people to the core, but most of them are. They're right. They've either made a poor decision after a crisis, or they've had a
Mm,
really, really tough upbringing. I
mm,
remember speaking to one guy, thinking, "It's amazing that you're here. Well done for being here in prison. You've survived. Your
mm,
childhood, your upbringing has been so horrific that you've won just by being here." So
mm,
some of their upbringings is horrific, and yeah, so it's any wonder they end up there. Mm.
mm. So now that your book is out in the world, what's next for you? Are there more projects or messages that you're passionate about sharing?
I think I'm really enjoying this space of really connecting with people again. I really missed it
Mm,
while I was unwell. It was very isolating being unwell and isolating even writing a book. So um, what I've found is that people that have read the book are really connecting with it,
mm,
and want to connect with me straight away. I've had big long messages saying how finally someone gets it, and they're explaining.
mm,
I've explained it in a way that their partner can understand. So and they want more. So I'm
mm,
working on a bit of a course at the minute, or a guide. I don't know what to call it, but to help people become change their narrative around trauma,
mm.
become their own heroes in their own story,
Love that.
and get them to a place where they can live with it, park it and live with it, and then
Mm,
you know
mm,
get on with the life that they were meant to be living. So
mm.
I'd love to
Brilliant.
help people do that. Yeah. Mm.
Amazing. Now, if you could go back and speak to yourself at the start of your journey, what would you say now?
When I first become unwell, or when I first went
Mm,
into the,
mm,
oh, just stop beating yourself up. That
mm,
that was the detriment. That's what made me be so unwell for so long. It was just like, come on, you
mm,
have to be stronger.
mm,
Well, no, I've been through a very violent event, and I
mm,
acted quite normal
mm,
in that violent event, and it's left me acting the same way now.
mm,
So I think just not be so hard on yourself. Embrace your flaws, embrace who you are. Trying to
mm,
hide that I had complex PTSD was exhausting.
mm,
Um,
mm.
it's like
So,
trying,
do you find that the moment you started being open with people about it, it took the weight off, but it made you realize that, everyone's going through something and then people are really understanding?
yeah, I thought I was the
Mm,
only one. I thought I was other
mm,
than, you hear about combat soldiers coming back from war, you know that they've got each other. But I thought I knew other people had been through things, but I thought I'm the
mm,
only one acting this weird way. I'm the only one being triggered with the nightmares, and once you start talking, it's like this shared healing. Other people have it
mm,
too. And
mm.
it's just like we don't need to retell our stories to that extent.
Yep.
It's just like, I get you. I'm here for
Yes.
you. I've got you. We
Yep.
both
It's an
understand.
instant bond, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, our
Yeah.
stories that got us there might be different, which we
Mm,
often are, but
mm,
our symptoms are very similar, as in our triggers, our flashbacks, our nightmares, our
yeah.
avoidance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's almost like we're all spread out on doing it on our own, but we need to come in
Mm,
and support each other. Mm.
yeah. Absolutely. And lastly, what final message would you like to share with the readers and listeners who might be experiencing similar struggles?
Yeah, just to talk about, like,
Mm,
not to read talk about your story over and over that you were the victim, but change the narrative that you were actually the
mm,
hero in this. You've got
mm,
resilience, you're strong, you got through it. And
mm,
by getting through it, you've got something to share with someone else. You've got
mm,
by you talking about your strength, you're actually helping someone else heal. So,
mm,
um, yeah, I think that we just all need to support each other,
mm,
and and tell our stories. Storytelling is one of the most powerful healing
mm.
methods that you can ever do. Yeah, yeah, it's
100%. Yeah,
mm.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for our latest episode. Nikki's story is a powerful reminder that even in the face of life's toughest challenges, there's always a way forward. Now, if today's conversation resonated with you or someone you know, I encourage you to reach out for support. It's a brave and vital step on the path to healing. Now, to connect with Nikki and learn more about her book, Uncomfortably Comfortable, do you know how many times I try to say that the right way and I get it wrong most times? You can find her on sheismental.com.au. Now, I have to ask, how did you come up with She Is Mental? It's pretty harsh.
Yeah, it is hard. It's a bit of a funny story because working in the prison system, you're not really on social media. So I
Mm.
said to my daughter, who's a bit of a smart aleck, can you set me up an Instagram account? And so she's come back with She Is Mental PTSD.
Oh,
So at the start, I was a
classic.
bit shocked, but I love it now. I think
Oh, that's
it's very
perfect.
fitting. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. Amazing. Really look forward to hearing what's next from you. And I really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing with everyone and making us feel like we're all on the same old path together, just getting through and helping each other.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nikki. Chat again soon.
Bye.
Bye. Also, if you're looking for a way to relax and reset, why not visit us in person at Destination Happiness Studio? Our timetable of relaxation classes is carefully designed to help you unwind and restore your nervous system, with offerings like gentle yoga, sound healing, breath work, and more. You can find out more and book your spot at destinationhappiness.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Destination Happiness podcast and YouTube channel for more inspiring stories and practical tools to support your journey to happiness. Until next time, I'm Angie Hilton. Take care, be kind to yourself, and remember, you're never alone on this path. That was a good little test run.
We'll get ourselves a job in IT.